This video was made in partnership with Newbie, who are just as obsessed with movies as we are.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
Can a person really be this kind and genuine? Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 things a beautiful day in the neighborhood got factually right.
Tom Junod wrote one of the most beautiful articles you could read for Esquire magazine about Mr. Rogers.
For this list, we're taking a look at the details in this biographical drama that remained true to the lives of both Fred Rogers and Tom Junod, the journalist who wrote the Esquire article it's based on, Can You Say Hero? There is a minor spoiler alert in effect here.
Please won't you be my neighbor?
That was wonderful.
Number 10. Mr. Rogers took pictures to document his life.
It's Mr. Rogers there in the...
On the left.
A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood depicts Fred Rogers as someone who's always living in the now, taking pictures to immortalize certain moments and people. The Esquire journalist who's sent to interview Rogers, referred to as Lloyd Vogel in the film, is caught off guard when Fred wants a snapshot of him. According to the original article, Rogers really did break out a camera and ask if he could take the writer's picture. Rogers reportedly said, quote, "I'd like to take your picture. I like to take pictures of all my new friends so that I can show them to Joanne." Documentary filmmaker Benjamin Wagner claims that Rogers preferred taking pictures rather than being photographed himself, another detail this movie gets down. Number 9. Fred and the journalist remained in contact.
Seeing Tom playing Fred is moving.
It is so nice to meet you.
Speaking of photos, there's a scene in the film's final act where Rogers takes a picture of Vogel's family after they all share some pie. While this moment does feel like a stretch, Fred and the Esquire journalist did form a lasting bond. Even if they didn't constantly see each other in person per se, they remained in close contact via email well after the article was published in 1998. In a 2019 article published by The Atlantic, Tom Junod looked back on his friendship with Rogers. "For as long as I knew him, we corresponded," he wrote. He added towards the end of the article, quote, "He gave so much to me, so much trust and friendship, without asking me to earn it."
You love people like me.
What are people like you?
Broken people. I don't think you were broken.
Number 8. Rogers was advised against doing the interview.
I insisted he read you before we agreed.
And did he?
Every article we could find.
Early on in the film, Vogel is told by his editor that Rogers is the only person who will do an interview with him. All the other celebrities said no due to Vogel's reputation.
You hired me as an investigative journalist. I don't do puff pieces.
400 words. Play nice.
It's also strongly hinted at that those who work with Rogers are not thrilled about Vogel, feeling that he'll paint everyone's favorite neighbor in a negative light.
I'm profiling Mr. Rogers.
Oh God, Lloyd, please. Don't ruin my childhood.
Nevertheless, Rogers ignores all warning signs and welcomes Vogel with open arms. In reality, Rogers' co-workers did advise him against speaking with the Esquire journalist, pointing out that it could damage his image. Even though people allegedly thought he was crazy for saying yes, Rogers remained true to character and decided to see the good in humanity rather than the bad.
You said it was a play at the plate. Is that what happened to you?
I'm here to interview you, Mr. Rogers.
Well, that is what we're doing, isn't it?
Number 7. Rogers was overweight as a child.
I've often wondered if there hadn't been a Fat Freddy, would there have been a Mr. Rogers?
Although Rogers was a beacon of optimism, his life wasn't without hardships. At one point in the movie, Rogers tells Vogel that he was bullied as a child for being overweight. According to Morgan Neville, who directed the documentary Won't You Be My Neighbor, quote, "People called him Fat Freddy, and he made a very willful decision that that's not gonna be who I am for the rest of my life, and I never was." By the time Rogers was grown up, he weighed a healthy 143 pounds, and he strived to maintain that exact weight. The number was so special to Rogers that he reportedly said, 143 means I love you. Number 6. The time Rogers couldn't put up a tent. During a taping of the show, Vogel bears witness to an unscripted incident where Rogers struggles to put up a camping tent. Rogers ultimately can't get the tent to set up properly, but he decides against doing another take. A few liberties are taken here, as this particular episode aired in 1975, decades before Rogers' Esquire interview took place. Also, in the finished episode, we never see Rogers wrestle with the tent. Instead, it's already been assembled when Rogers walks outside.
Do you have any idea what this might be? It's a tent.
However, Rogers did in fact have a hard time unfolding the tent, which was captured on camera. While this lengthy blooper wasn't featured on the show, Rogers did share it on a 1982 episode of Late Night with David Letterman, demonstrating that nobody's perfect.
Helps to have two people to put these up.
Number 5. Mr. Rogers was an avid swimmer.
Last time I promised I'd show you where I sometimes swim and how I swim. I like to keep my promises.
Throughout a montage, Rogers is seen doing laps in a swimming pool. This sequence is faithful to the real-life Rogers, who swam nearly every morning of his life, according to the Esquire article. In 1997, a year before Can You Say Hero was published, a 69-year-old Rogers was the focus of a Los Angeles Times article entitled Can You Say Avid Swimmer? When asked how often he would swim, Rogers responded, quote, "Every day between 7 and 8:30 before work. I swim 25 minutes hard, and this is in a 75-foot pool. I used to swim at the lunch break, but that was too discombobulating for the schedule maker." Rogers proceeded to say that he'd been keeping up this routine for 35 years.
Many years ago, I promised myself that I would try to swim a certain length of time each day. And I've done that almost every day for more than 10 years.
Number 4. The Esquire journalist was seen as a bad boy.
I was really going to the dark side on stories, and somebody at the magazine thought it would be really kind of funny having me doing a story on Fred Rogers.
As mentioned before, the film establishes up front that Vogel is a rogue journalist who is not afraid to ask personal questions. Vogel may be an award-winning writer, but no big names want to do an interview with a quote-unquote bad boy. This is true to the actual Esquire journalist, Junod, who had landed in hot water prior to interviewing Rogers. The article in question that garnered him such a notorious reputation was entitled Kevin Spacey Has a Secret, which made coy insinuations about the actor's sexuality. This particular article doesn't get singled out here, but considering the more recent news revolving around Spacey, we get why the filmmakers would want to leave his name out of a PG movie. Number 3. Rogers' The Arsenio Hall Show appearance.
There's an attitude out there, there's some things going on, there's a lot of hopelessness. What do we need to do?
Weighs heavy on all of us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
One of the more surreal moments in the film finds Rogers on the Arsenio Hall Show. Hall gives Rogers a multicolored leather jacket which closely resembles his own. Not only did this happen in 1993, but the actual television footage was used in the film. Of course, the real Fred Rogers is swapped out with Tom Hanks through the magic of special effects.
Let people know that each one of us is precious. Let everybody know that we have value in this life.
Hanks' performance is so uncanny, however, that it's honestly like seeing double. The question that remains is if Rogers ever hung the jacket he got from Hall alongside his cardigans.
I think the best thing we can do is to let people know, that each one of them is precious.
Number 2. Rogers' vegetarianism.
Let's just think of all kinds of babies drinking milk.
Sitting down to a meal together, Vogel can't help but notice that Rogers is only eating vegetables. Rogers tells Vogel that he can't bring himself to eat something that has a mother, which is a phrase he regularly said. Rogers reportedly cut meat out of his diet during the early 70s upon reading Diet for a Small Planet, the first widespread book to address how meat production can negatively impact the environment. Frances Moore Lappé urged readers to practice vegetarianism, and Rogers took her advice to heart. Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few things the movie got wrong. The journalist's name. While he's called Lloyd Vogel in the movie, the journalist who interviewed Rogers for Esquire is of course actually named Tom Junod. The wedding fistfight. At his sister's wedding in the film, Vogel gets into a heated confrontation with his father, leading to a fistfight between him and another guest. Junod clarified though that not only did he not get into a fight at his sister's wedding, but his sister never had a wedding. the journalist's father and wife. The film also changes the name of Tom Junod's wife, who's really named Janet, and Junod's father, who was actually named Lou. The film made up a fair deal about his family dynamics as well, particularly the one he shared with his father. While Lou Junod was a boozy philanderer, as seen in the movie, Tom said that nonetheless, quote, "I idolized my father despite my mother's warnings." Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. 1 silent minute. At the restaurant with Vogel, Rogers suggests setting aside 1 silent minute before eating. This is another quote that's directly taken out of Rogers' life. At the 24th Annual Daytime Emmy Awards, where he received a Lifetime Achievement Award, Rogers asked the audience to take 10 seconds of silence.
Would you just take, along with me, 10 seconds to think of the people who have helped you become who you are?
While giving his commencement address at Dartmouth College in 2002, Rogers asked attendees to take 1 silent minute.
Imagine how grateful they must be that during your silent times you remember how important they are to you.
These instances really spoke to Rogers' spiritual side, which Tom Junod felt came off as extremely accurate in the movie.
Please won't you be my neighbor?
This video was made in partnership with Nuvi, who are just as obsessed with movies as we are. Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.